Welcome to Communicate to Lead, the podcast that empowers leaders and aspiring leaders to communicate with clarity and impact. I'm Keely Belton, CEO and successful entrepreneur, and your host for today. I'm here to equip you with all the essential tools and strategies to master effective communication and lead your team to success. As the founder and CEO of The Tailored Approach, my goal is to empower you to be the best leader you can be. So sit back, relax, and join me in today's episode as we dive into the art of communicating like a true leader. Imagine sitting in that crucial board meeting. Your innovative strategy could transform the company. But as you start speaking, you notice the subtle signs. The CFO checking their phone, the CEO's skeptical expression, and worst of all, your CEO's growing impatience. Your brilliant idea is dying, not because it's flawed, but because your communication isn't landing. This scenario plays out in boardrooms, team meetings, and one-on-ones every single day, costing careers, opportunities, and millions in lost potential. If you've ever felt your message getting lost in translation or struggling to get buy-in for your ideas, you are not alone. And here's the thing, it's not only what you're saying, it's also how you're saying it. Welcome back to Communicate to Lead. I'm your host, Keely. And today we are unpacking why communication is the beating heart of effective leadership. I'll give you 3 practical insights or pillars that will change how you present yourself as a leader. Whether you're aiming for that senior position or you're already sitting in the C-suite, this episode is short and sweet and is your guide to communicating with a kind of impact that turns heads and moves hearts. Let's start with a reality check that might surprise you. According to recent research by Salesforce, 93% of executives cite poor communication as a key factor in workplace failures. Let that sink in for a moment. It's not strategy, market conditions, or even resources. It's communication that makes or breaks success in the workplace. And here's what's fascinating. As you climb the leadership ladder, the stakes get even higher. Think about that. When you're starting out, you might be managing a team of 5. Your communication mainly impacts those direct reports. But as you move up in your leadership, suddenly your words affect hundreds, maybe thousands of people. One unclear email, one mishandled town hall meeting, one poorly navigated typical conversation, and the impact can be enormous. Let's start with the first pillar of leadership communication, building credibility. Because here's a fact, your title might get people to listen the first time, but it's your communication that keeps them coming back. The good news is that you can master the skill of building credibility through your communication. Last year, I worked with a corporate client. Let's call her Mia, who excelled at her job. She could solve complex problems in her sleep. But her team wasn't performing as well as they could, and she couldn't figure out why. After working with her for a day, the issue became clear. Her communication style was undermining her credibility. Mia would send long, jargon-filled emails that often confused her team. Her instructions were not always clear, and she'd frequently change direction without explaining why. So here's what we did in the time that we worked together. We implemented what I call the 3C method: clear, concise, and consistent messaging. So every communication that she sent out, that she had with someone, had to pass these 3 checkpoints. 1, clear. Could a 10th grader understand your point? 2, concise. Can you say it in half the words? Often we are so verbose, we say so much more than we need to. And it's always good to come back and edit. I remember when I was in high school, I had a teacher who always said, it's time to kill your darlings. So you might be so happy and impressed with what you wrote or what you're going to say or your speech, but sometimes it's time to trim it down. What words can you eliminate without losing the essence? That's too concise. Lastly, number 3, consistent. Does this message align with what you've said before? And if it doesn't, can you explain the reason for the shift? So there you have it. You want to make sure that your message is clear, concise, and consistent. This was a significant change for Mia and her team. Within about 3 months, her team's productivity increased significantly, and team members actually started coming to her for guidance far more often than they did before. And that brings us to the second pillar of leadership communication, which is inspiration and videocasting. Think about the leaders who inspire you. I bet they all have one thing in common. They can paint a picture of the future that makes you want to be a part of it. This isn't about grand speeches. It's about making complex ideas simple and compelling. Here's a technique I call the before-after bridge approach. Before, acknowledge where things are now. After, paint a picture of where you could be. What could the future look like? And then lastly, the bridge, show the path to get there. So it's before, after, and then the bridge that connects the before to the future or to what you want to finally achieve. For example, instead of saying, we need to improve our customer service, try saying, right now, our customers wait an average of 48 hours for responses. Imagine if we could respond within 2 hours. Our satisfaction scores would soar and we'd stand out in the industry. Here's how we can make that happen. And then give them the action steps. What needs to happen? By when does this need to happen? And who needs to make this happen? There you have it. Before, after, bridge approach. Okay, let's tackle pillar 3. Namely, you probably expected it, mastering difficult conversations. Because let's be real, leadership isn't always about inspiration and vision. Sometimes you need to have tough conversations about performance, restructuring, or conflicts. Many leaders stumble at this point. We've all experienced that knot in our stomachs before a tough conversation. But here's what you need to remember. Your ability to handle difficult conversations directly impacts your leadership ceiling. So if you want to keep climbing, if you see yourself in the C-suite, you need to be able to get comfortable having difficult conversations. I worked with a senior leader during a major company restructuring recently. The easy path would have been to hide behind corporate emails and HR policies. We are seeing that today. Instead of being genuinely authentic and caring about people and telling them the reasons why things are happening, we are hiding behind HR policies. Meta looking at you. Instead, she used what I call the prepare, engage, resolve framework. Number 1, prepare. She got clear on the facts and emotions involved. 2, engage. She had a conversation with empathy and clarity because she had prepped. She knew exactly what she wanted to get out of the conversation. She knew exactly what she wanted to say. So when it was time to engage, she knew that she could do it with empathy and clarity. And lastly, number 3, resolve. Focus on actionable next steps. What needs to happen? By when does it need to happen? And who needs to make it happen? The result was that while other teams face high turnover and morale, this leader that I was working with, her team remained engaged and focused even through significant changes. And the same can be true for you. So give it a try. Try out the prepare, engage, resolve framework. Let me know how that works out for you. Now, let's talk about what you can do this week to start improving your leadership communication. 1, record yourself in your next meeting. I say this all the time, and yes, I am saying it again. Watch that recording back. Notice your filler words, body language, and how clearly you convey your main points. If you want to take it a step further, share that recording with someone you trust, a colleague, a friend, and ask them for their feedback. 2, before your next important conversation, write down your key message in 1 sentence. If you can't explain it simply, you haven't thought it through clearly enough. So keep working until you have 1 clear message ready to go. And lastly, number 3, circling back to feedback. Ask a trusted colleague for feedback on your communication style. Specific questions such as, do I listen enough? Or are my expectations clear? Will provide better insights than general questions. And if you remember nothing else from today's episode, keep the following in mind. Don't avoid difficult conversations because they really don't age like fine wine. 2, don't assume everyone thinks like you do. They don't. That's the gift. So put yourself in your audience's shoes. Ask yourself, what do they care about? And focus your message on that. And lastly, don't forget to check for understanding. Did your audience understand what you said? Are they clear? Do they have any questions? Keep checking back because that is where the care comes in, that you care and want to know that they truly understand what you're sharing. Masterful leadership communication does more than drive your success. It powers the growth and excellence of everyone in your organization. So, if this episode resonated with you, I'd love to hear about your communication challenges and wins. Share them with me on LinkedIn and Instagram using hashtag leadership communication. You can grab the links to my Instagram and LinkedIn in the show notes. And remember, your brilliant ideas deserve to be heard, but it's your communication skills that will ensure they land with your audience. Thank you for joining me on Communicate to Lead. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your network, subscribe to the podcast, and leave a review. I will be forever grateful to you for helping me grow our leadership community. Until next week, my friend, I am Keely, reminding you that great communication is the foundation of inspiring leadership. Keep learning, keep growing, and remember to communicate to lead.